From Studio 19, I'm Jeff Allen Wolf, and this is definitely a world gone mad. Here we go. Lindsey Graham, the longtime Republican senator from South Carolina, one of Donald Trump's closest political allies, has died at the age of 71 following a sudden illness. Now, his death marks the end of one of the most recognizable and controversial political careers in modern Republican politics. Lindsey Graham's political legacy isn't complicated to me. I've watched a man who warned Republicans that Donald Trump would destroy the party. He spent the next several years acting like those speeches had been erased from his hard drive. It wasn't a political evolution. It was a political witness protection program. The Lindsey Graham who warned Republicans about Donald Trump simply disappeared. And in his place was a senator who acted like those speeches had been deleted from history. Somewhere between conviction and convenience, conviction packed its bags and never came back. Then came the announcement right after Graham's death that changed the conversation. FBI Director Kash Patel said the Bureau is assisting local authorities in the investigation into Graham's death. Now, if a sitting United States Senator dies unexpectedly, investigators should investigate. That's not what caught my attention. What caught my attention was how those words landed in today's political environment. For years, Donald Trump has talked about the deep state, enemies from within, and shadowy forces supposedly working against him and the country. Now, whether intentional or not, after years of that rhetoric, every major event is immediately viewed through that lens. Now, before investigators have had a chance to do their jobs, millions of people have already convinced themselves they know the ending. Within minutes, social media has already solved the case. We've reached the point where a headline isn't the beginning of the story anymore. It's the finish line. By the time investigators arrive, millions of Americans have already written the ending, cast the villains, and declared the case closed. Facts are no longer competing with opinions. They're competing with imaginations. We don't wait for facts anymore. We wait for somebody to confirm what we've already decided to believe. Confidence has become a substitute for competence, and speculation spreads faster than evidence ever could. Then almost immediately the conversation shifted from Lindsey Graham's life to Lindsey Graham's Senate seat. President Trump suggested Graham's sister should replace him. Senator Tim Scott voiced support. Senate Majority Leader John Thune also backed the idea. Now, I understand government doesn't stop because someone dies. Vacancies have to be filled. Only Washington can attend a political funeral with a resume in one hand and a seating chart in the other. Before the condolences are finished, the conversation has already shifted to who gets Lindsey Graham's office. Who gets the influence? Who gets the votes? In this town, the vacancy often gets more attention than the person who created it. And that's why this story isn't ending here. Because when every event is immediately filtered through the language of deep state, enemies from within, and hidden forces, eventually the rhetoric stops being background noise and starts becoming the story itself. That's exactly where we are right now. And it's exactly why the president's latest language should make every student of American history pay attention. So let's talk about America's newest Red Scare. The phrase Red Scare isn't political spin. It's American history. And it's one of those chapters that makes you wonder whether America has a short memory or just really enjoys reruns. Back in the late 1940s and 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy figured out something politicians have been trying to figure out ever since: fear sells. Convince people there's an invisible enemy hiding around every corner. They'll spend less time asking for evidence and more time looking under the bed. In McCarthy's era, suddenly communists were supposedly everywhere. Government, Hollywood, universities, the military. Pretty soon you got the feeling that if your mail arrived 5 minutes late, somebody would accuse the mailman of working for Moscow. If your reputation got caught in that machinery, facts often showed up long after the damage had already been done. Now let's fast forward to today, 2026. Donald Trump has repeatedly labeled his political opponents as communists. During his State of the Union address, Trump warned America about enemies from within. Now, whether you agree with Trump or disagree with him isn't really the point I'm making. The point is that words have histories. Calling somebody a communist isn't just another political insult. It's a label with decades of political baggage attached to it. Once you stop arguing that your opponents have bad ideas and start arguing that they're enemies hiding inside this country, you've changed the conversation completely. That's exactly what McCarthy understood. Fear is efficient. Fear spreads faster than facts. Fear doesn't ask for footnotes. Fear doesn't wait for investigations. Fear just wants a villain. Once people think they found one, evidence suddenly starts feeling like a technicality. And here's the part that angers me. Every generation acts like it invented this strategy. Different decade, different technology, different politicians. Same instruction manual with a fresh cover slapped on it. History never repeats itself exactly. It updates the wardrobe, changes the soundtrack, gives everybody a smartphone. But every so often it reaches into the closet, pulls out an old political playbook, changes the title, and hopes nobody recognizes the plot. Maybe that's the real question. When familiar political language comes back wearing a different name tag, do we recognize it? Or do we convince ourselves we've never seen it before? Trump calling his opponents communists is flat out dangerous. Okay, the war with Iran is heating up again, which raises one fairly important question. Exactly how many missiles does the United States have left? I'm serious with that question, because apparently our national defense strategy is now based on the same principle I use when there are 3 cookies left in the cookie package. Don't count them, just keep reaching inside and hope for the best. The United States burned through an enormous number of sophisticated weapons during the first round of fighting with Iran. Tomahawk missiles, Patriot interceptors, THAAD interceptors, weapons that are extraordinarily expensive, extremely difficult to manufacture, and unfortunately not available through Amazon Prime by Thursday. One analysis estimates the United States fired more than 1,000 Tomahawk missiles during the current Iran campaign. Rebuilding some of the critical missile inventories could take at least 3 years, and restoring the Tomahawk stockpile to its pre-war level may not happen until near the end of the decade. This isn't replacing batteries in the television remote, everyone. These are complex weapons with specialized parts, limited production lines, and manufacturers who can't simply put up a help line to sign and begin producing missiles during the afternoon shift. And now the fighting is escalating again with Iran. So we're using more of the weapons we've already struggling to replace, while defense contractors assure us they're working very hard to increase production. That's comforting. Nothing makes me feel safer than hearing the phrase, production should increase once Congress approves the funding. That's military readiness being held together by a purchase order, and it's a sincere hope that nobody starts another war before the paperwork clears. The problem isn't that the United States is about to run out of everything tomorrow morning. Analysts believe we still have enough weapons to continue the Iran conflict under plausible scenarios. The problem is what happens next, because every missile used in Iran is one less missile available if China moves against Taiwan, Russia expands its war, or some other crisis erupts while we're still rebuilding the shelf of weaponry. That's the part nobody seems eager to discuss. The United States is supposed to be prepared to deter several major adversaries at the same time. But deterrence works best when your opponents believe you have plenty of weapons. Not when they're watching you count the remaining inventory like a bartender checking the liquor bottles 15 minutes before closing. We're already delaying or canceling some promised weapon deliveries to NATO allies because the stockpiles are strained. Europe is being told it may have to wait for Patriot interceptors, Tomahawks, and other systems because America has discovered that selling and promising weapons is considerably easier than manufacturing enough of them. Apparently, the arsenal of democracy now comes with supply chain delays and an estimated delivery window sometime between Tuesday and 2031. That's what happens when foreign policy is conducted as though weapons are an unlimited resource. They aren't. Every interceptor fired has to be replaced. Every cruise missile launched creates another hole in the inventory. And every new military commitment makes the next commitment harder to keep. So while the Trump administration talks about finishing the job in Iran, wiping them out, somebody needs to ask whether we're also finishing off our military weapons stockpile. Because winning the war directly in front of you while leaving yourself dangerously exposed for the war that may come next isn't brilliant military strategy. It's spending the emergency fund during the first emergency, acting shocked when another emergency refuses to wait its turn. Same shit, different day in Trump's circus of the absurd. I'm convinced we're living through the strangest political experiment of our lifetime. Every week seems determined to outdo the one before it. It's definitely a world gone mad. If you've enjoyed the podcast, found it informative, maybe got a laugh or two, please contribute to keeping this podcast around. The link is in the episode description below if you care to help. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. I'll be back Wednesday. Until then, I urge you, the Wolf Pack, remain skeptical, question everything, please don't lose hope, and most of all, stay alert.